Good morning. So we're here this morning with Coherence Horsemanship Institute, and we're really striving to, well, not even striving anymore, we're doing it. We're inspiring people to question the status quo and to embrace a new era of learning, understanding, and as we're doing this morning with Kim Hallin, collaborating, because I really feel that's a huge piece of the business world that needs to change for the better of everybody. Kim is founder and equine-inspired soul guide at Unbridled LLC. I love that name. And an accomplished horsewoman promoting humane methods that uphold the integrity of the horse. Kim actually left a 20-year career in higher education management and fundraising to pursue her lifelong dream of bringing humans and horses together to heal together. Kim loves facilitating unique, authentic, and transformational experiences between humans and horses, and she believes every individual, human and equine, is born with an innate calling, and that fulfillment comes through honoring one's truth and purpose. Through her work, she's identified 6 primary challenges most humans and many domestic horses struggles with when trying to live in accordance with their inner purpose. So good morning, Kim, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. It's my pleasure. I'm real excited.
Well, I can't wait to hear about, there's so many questions I have. So I think the first one, and just for our viewing public, is to understand, here's somebody with an amazing 20-year career doing something successfully, and your heart ran away with you and you are doing something completely different now. And what's the tipping point? What happens that causes somebody to do that?
I think there's definitely usually a lot of factors involved with that, but I think what happens for a lot of us, and definitely happened with me, is as a kid, I was one of those kids that grew up, loving horses. And I even had a vision of actually doing something like this as a child. And then, you grow up, you go through college, you get a job, get married, adult responsibilities take over, and you get into a career. It was very fulfilling, but you kind of get sidetracked from what it was that was your initial calling, right? In your heart. And horses have always been a hobby and a passion. Then I went through a divorce, big changes in my life that really made me relook at, what do I want the second half of my life to be about? And then it was just a matter of having the courage to take that leap.
And you did.
I did, yes.
Yes, quite to the benefit, I'm sure, of many, many people and horses. So just for clarity's sake, because Unbridled is an amazing title, but what do you do?
Yeah, good question. So my business is pretty eclectic, but the common theme is that, and the name, portrays this, Unbridled, is I support people and horses in unbridling themselves from both the external pressures that we all take on that sort of often cause us to make decisions or choices or behaviors that aren't really true to our inner selves. Mm-hmm. And also unbridling ourselves from the internal gremlins, if you will, the insecurities, the fears, those sorts of things that also prevent us from living our most authentic lives and sharing our greatest gifts.
And so when people come to you, Kim, this is happening at your facility, is that correct?
Most of it, yes, it happens at my facility, but I'm also moving toward more and more online and virtual programs and services as well.
Oh, very exciting. Okay. So people come, do they come with their own horses, or is this for people that have no horses or have never been around horses? What's your clientele majority?
It's kind of mixed. They do not bring their own horses, though. If they come to my facility, they work with my herd. I have 4 horses now and a pig that are all part of my herd. I do occasionally go out and do relationship coaching with other people and their own horses on their farms, okay, or do facilitation for equine assisted learning programs that have their own herd, that kind of thing. But mostly it's people coming to me, and some of them are lifelong equestrians and others are scared to death of horses. I've never been around. So it doesn't matter.
I know what that's like. I've had some clients that are not horse people.
Right.
Yeah, but the change that happens is pretty amazing too, because they have no expectation of the horse.
Absolutely. In fact, actually the work that I do, because so much of it is about, the way that I teach people about horses is not the way that any of us have learned about horses in the domestic world or the equine industry. It's really all about the study of horses from an ethological perspective, natural horse behavior and herd behavior, even though mine is a domestic herd, but we talk about the differences between how my horses live and how natural wild horses would live. And it's interesting that people who don't come with any sort of preconceived notion or experience with horses have a much easier time accepting kind of what I teach than those who have, bring a lot of stuff with them related to their life with horses.
Yes, and I can relate to that completely. I do a program in California that's for people that have never been around horses before. So yes, amazing what they're open to listening to and understanding and then connecting with the
right
horse.
Yeah. It really has proven to me that it's not necessarily our horse experience that creates that connection, because I've seen some amazing connections happen really quickly with people who've never been around horses.
Nice. Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. So can you explain when you're doing one of your sessions, is this something that is, they're obviously introduced to a different perspective on the way the horse is, quote unquote. And then is that an organic type of action that happens or interaction that happens, or is it directed by you in any way, or how does that work?
It's a great question. And when I started doing this business, this work, the only model I had was some of the official formal programs that are out there that are pretty structured. Mm-hmm. But I have found that the less structure I put to it and the more I just allow it to happen organically, the more powerful the sessions are. So we always start with some herd observation where we might be outside the pasture or inside the pasture, depending on how the comfort level of the people involved and how safe they feel. But once they really get to know what horses are as sort of peaceful grazing animals, and that they're very respectful of space, especially if there's no treats. I don't let anyone feed my horses by hand, so we don't have any of those dynamics. Their comfort level really picks up. And then it's just sort of organic, like how the horses choose to participate or not. And then what does that bring up? And it's about learning about ourselves by not only watching the horses interact with each other and the model that they present of like peaceful, harmonious communal living, but also what comes up in us in response to everything that's happening and to whether or not the horses are interacting with us directly.
Isn't that... Yeah, I always find it interesting the self-interpretation based on what the horse's action is that people that are not horse people have.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes. One of my favorites is when we've been observing for a while and maybe the horses have been with us, and then we're sitting or standing in a particular place, and then the horses start to move away, and people usually feel like, well, why are they leaving us? And I think like it's not natural for horses to stay in one place. Like maybe they're inviting us to go with them, right? They might not be leaving us, but we tend to automatically say they don't want to be with us anymore, right? Instead of we miss that whole invitation that they might be inviting us to join them.
Right? So one of your tools then is reframing situations for people to understand differently.
Absolutely, yeah. And to understand the assumptions that we make in situations.
So I want to get to those 6 primary challenges, but I wanted to ask you before, because my brain is just, I want to know, the inquiring mind wants to know. Can you briefly share the kinds of healing experiences that you have witnessed with this type of work?
Yeah, it's so profound. But one of the things that comes up in almost every session is about boundaries, right? And horses are such great models of they have personal space. They know their personal space. They communicate their personal space. Sometimes it's so subtle, we're not used to receiving that. But if someone isn't aware of their own personal space, the horses will always find a way to just sort of let them know that they're not paying attention to monitoring what's coming into their space or not, right? And then there's also the containment boundaries. Some people, some of us don't know how to keep our own stuff here and not project it out. So it's like both of those become really obvious, and that comes up in almost every session. Also, like it's still related to boundaries, but everybody wants to touch the horses.
Yes.
And horses don't naturally touch each other very much. That's not really how they show, wanting to be close to you or being, communicating with you. They're very specific reasons that they use touch. And so that can be extremely eye-opening. I had a gentleman, an older gentleman, who came out who, he was just a space invader, honestly, by his own. He liked to hug. He said it. He's like, and he told me up front that he gets a lot of, not conflict, but there's a lot of pushback especially from women sometimes with that. And he chose to interact with one of my horses who is very, very vocal in her body language about personal space. And I just can't tell you, he spent about 30 minutes interacting with her, never touching her, and just reading after I showed him how to read her feedback. And at the end, he came up to me and he said, I have a completely different understanding now. And I don't think I will ever have the inclination to want to enter into someone's space without permission again.
So he took his Space Invader helmet off.
But for someone who was in his 70s and have gone through his whole life and never really had that, it taught to him in a way that like resonated with him.
Yeah.
It was pretty, yeah.
Nice. That is great. Oh, so, and I can see, and I'm sure everybody else can that views this, how those lessons that people are learning in that very kind way that the horse does is so eye-opening, and then filters through everything that they do. And as you're saying, almost instantaneously, 30 minutes in a span of 70 years of life. That's
it's pretty profound. And I think part of it is that, people who come in, even people who've been around horses, don't really understand how much the horses are understanding and communicating, and that their goal isn't just to protect themselves. Their goal is to have whatever's in their environment be harmonious. So if we're out of balance in some way, they're going to find a way to want to show it. I don't even know if it's that they're that giving so much as it's just that's what they want in their world, right? And if we're in their world, they want to help us, get healthier. And I don't know, there's just something hugely impactful about an animal, especially an animal that size, like wanting to help us figure out how to be more at peace. Yeah.
And especially because they truly don't speak the same language we do. They do, but we're not aware of it, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the other piece, is like to understand that there's really just the universal language of yes and no is all you really need to know. Once you can learn a little bit about how does the horse say yes and how does the horse say no, then like you can have pretty much any conversation that you want. And that's really empowering too, not just because then they feel like comfortable with the horse, but that's a lesson you can take into the rest of your life, right?
Yes, very applicable. So just an overview of 6 primary challenges, because I'm sure everybody else is as curious as I am.
Yeah, so the 6 primary challenges, one is kind of just who am I and what is my purpose? And that gets back to, we talk a lot about what our horses innately, and there's this whole jobs that we give them in the domestic world that they didn't choose, right? That gets put on them, and then they either have to get good at it or adjust to it. So anyway, we have the same issues in the domestic world where other things try to define who we are. So it's just getting back to unbridling ourselves from all those things and figuring out who we are. Other I talked about already is boundaries. That's huge. Fear and anxiety and how we cope with that. And also, what are the ways that fear and anxiety is beneficial to us? And then what are the ways that it is detrimental if we're not dealing with it and managing it well? The third is self-care. Horses are masters at self-care. And we talk a lot about the difference between self-care and self-soothing, right? Activities are maybe distracting and which activities are actually helpful for us. The art of allowing.
Oh, I love that.
Being present, working with what's already present and available in the moment. And that gets kind of into a mindset of abundance as well. And then the final one is sort of like it's manifesting, really. My vibe attracts my tribe and attracts everything else that's coming into my life. And the healthier we get, the healthier things, people, opportunities, activities that we're going to attract into our life. So those are the 6 that I focus on a lot.
My favorite saying, everything is everything else.
Absolutely.
That's your last statement. Yeah.
Love that.
So if you were to pick one out of those 6, would you pick one, and then could you give us maybe 2 tips that would help people that are dealing with that sort of challenge, something that they could do that would help them to focus in and then maybe change the pattern or alter it in a way that's beneficial?
Gosh, which one? Well, I guess, one of the ones that people get really hung up on wanting to know what is their purpose and who are they. That just seems to be something that nags at a lot of people. And so one of the things that the horses are so great at helping us get in touch with is listening to our gut, right? And also, like, what are the things that, left to our own devices, we can't stop ourselves from wanting to do or thinking about, right? That we would do it whether we get paid for it or not, do it late at night, at midnight, stay up to do it, and for horses, that's simply like grazing and behaving like a horse, being in that herd environment. Those are the things that they're always going to want to do, because it's what they actually are. It's what they were evolved to be. And so seeing them be what they're meant to be versus what everyone's always seen them doing at horse shows or on TV or carriage rides, mounted police, whatever. Very rarely do people spend time actually just seeing horses be and do what horses are. And that's really helpful in helping people kind of whittle away all the things that are not really who they are, and start thinking about that. So that's one of the big ones.
Very nice.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm not sure. What other one should I talk about? I guess let's talk about fear and anxiety a little bit. So fear, a lot of people think that horses are going to sense that I'm afraid, and then they're going to be uncomfortable. I tell people all the time, horses aren't afraid of fear. They're not disconcerted by fear. Fear is their best friend. As prey animals, they trust their fear and they use their fear. It is what keeps them safe and alive. And the same is true for us, but we have to go through the same process that horses do. If they're afraid of something, they're left to their own devices, they're free, they're going to investigate it. Like, we've all seen the horses. They'll spend a half an hour checking out that flag that's blowing, right? Looking at it from all angles. They're going to sniff it. After they get scared and run away, then they're going to get curious.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're trying to determine for themselves. Nobody can tell them, you don't need to be afraid of that, right? They have to ask all the questions that say, is this fear legitimate? And then they'll behave accordingly. And that's the process we have to go through as well. We can have fears and we should listen to those, but then we need to investigate, is this a legitimate fear or is this an irrational fear that I'm letting control my life and I'm not resolving the fear and being able to move on? If we don't resolve the fear, then it turns into, ongoing anxiety that we live with. So those are a couple of quick examples, maybe.
Yeah, those were great. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, and I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, Kim, to share with us. And what an amazing program you're doing out there. I just thank you for making a difference in the horse world. It's definitely apparent. And I wanted we're going to embed your information onto this interview, but if you could just share your website and contact information just verbally, and then we're going to put it on there visually also.
Absolutely. So my website, and first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I just love what you're doing about sharing information about resources that are out there. So, but my website is www.unbridled.guru. And the funny thing is, I wasn't considering myself a guru when I created that. The horses are the gurus. That was my mentality. .com, .org, all of those were taken. So I went with guru because I thought the horses are the gurus in life and in my world. So it's unbridled.guru. And then I also have a Facebook page, Unbridled LLC with Kim Hallin. And I have a YouTube channel where I have a lot of great resources that you can get for free. It's Kim Hallin. So Yes.
Wonderful. Yay. And so in addition to having the interview on there, if you have a tip sheet that you'd like to share, and we'll link to a couple of your YouTube videos for people so that they have a direct link from our site to what you're doing. So there's no question of having to go somewhere else. Because I really feel that what you're doing and how you're sharing this is really important to the change that this world needs and is going through, really, in a big way.
Yeah.
So.
I think humanity definitely does need the horses right now, and
Yes.
and vice versa. You know, we're in this together. Horses and humans have been in this together for centuries, and we need to help one another through it. So.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kim. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye. Talk soon.